Thank you so much for attending to the talk. As you can see, today we are going to talk about demystifying accessibility, a journey through an app's creation process. So first, let me introduce myself and also my colleague. My name is Jai Polito. I'm a UX and UI designer and the deputy head manager of the UX and design team of the Mobile Competence Center of Iberia. And I'm here with my amazing colleague, Pilar Garcia. She's an iOS developer and she's also the native app tech lead, also from the Mobile Competence Center of Iberia. So, today, we are going to talk about the first step, which is going to be the design. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of accessibility, because you hear a lot about accessibility, but most of you probably wonder, do we really need to care about maybe the 10% of the population? The short answer is yes, of course, we should try to cover all possible solutions to be inclusive and to make it work for everyone. But you need to think that every single one of us, at some point in our life, we can experience any type of difficulty or any type of impairment. It doesn't matter if it's situational, temporary, or actually something that happens to you. Like, for example, here on the screens you can see that a person with just one arm can be also the same for a person who is holding a baby and trying to use your mobile application with just one hand. The same happens with people who cannot see or have different levels of visual impairment. Or maybe you are trying to use your application on a very sunny day and your mobile doesn't have actually a properly good screen, so you will not be able to read or to properly see the different contrasts. That happens to everyone at some point. So it's not about just a small group of the population. It's about everyone to try to be inclusive for absolutely every single person in this world. So, let's get into the topic. And this is a question that a lot of people ask every single time. Which label should I aim for? And I'm going to answer that by referring to Worldline. And the label that we really need to achieve is what our accessibility friend there is putting, and is the label AA. Some of you normally ask if it's the level A is just a matter of colors. Short answer, no. It's a little bit more complex than just some colors, contrasts of colors, or labels on the code. It's a little bit more complex than just that. Let me give you a little bit of context regarding the 3 different levels that you can see in this specific presentation. As you may know, the level number A, the letter A, have 25 criteria, and the level AA have 13 more criteria. These 2 levels are the ones that are actually mandatory by law. And if you don't know, every single company, especially Worldline, needs to try to compliance before summer next year, which means that you need to try to make your mobile applications or your website accessible before that day. We also have the level AAA, which is basically a little bit more complex and a little bit more tricky. It has a lot of more criteria and is very specified for specific markets. Our company is not inside of that one, for example. Most of the company only need to try to achieve the level AA. But as you can see, the level 8 have 25 plus the 13 more that we need to try to pass on the level AA, have a total of 38. It's not easy, yes, but it's actually possible to do it. So, I'm creating this specific design checklist, how I really like it to call it, because we need to try to toggle accessibility text. In this case, you need to try to make your text accessible. We are going to talk about that. We need to, of course, pass the contrast color. We need to be careful with the element size, and this is very important because we need to keep into consideration the different sizes of the fingers that some people have to have, or if maybe your terminal or your device is going to have a specific distance, so the elements and the different size of the text should not be the same of when you're using your phone in this specific distance. So all of that we are going to talk about as well. We are also need to take into consideration icons, and we have a special chapter today, content grouping, and the start of the show for this presentation, which is gonna be a screen description. Let's start first with accessibility reading. Probably you already know, I really hope you probably already know, that your body content of your site it doesn't matter if it's a web or if an app, it should not be less of 16 pixels. But you are allowed to use 14 just for small fonts. And when I say small fonts, I said especially about, for example, some legal text that you need to have in your specific website, or a small text that you really need them to be there. They are readable, but your body contour should never be 14. It always have to be 16 in order for you to be covered in terms of accessibility. Now, another topic. And here, I will give you a good example. This is a button, a read more button. And as you can see, you are actually compliant because the contrast of the text is actually passing accessibility with a shape. But what happens if we take a little bit more further? This is what your users are going to see. So good that your text is readable. That's good job. But you're forgetting about the contrast of an element of the shape of that button, which means that in terms of hierarchy, your users are only going to be seeing a floating text in there. And if you have a secondary button or another button like that, they are not going to understand the hierarchy of the primary or secondary action, which is going to be a pain point. How can we solve it? Easy. We need to check the contrast color of the text, but also of the background of that specific element, because you need that shade to be visible for everyone. If you don't make it, users will not understand that specific element. And there is when you have an accessibility problem. So that brings us to decorative versus functional. Because one thing is a text, and another thing is the color contrast of a specific element. And here is where we need to start understanding the difference between decorative and functional. My first charter is going to be a simple car, because we designed an application in order to show you more or less a real use case. So here we have a nice car on the top using a very nice light gray because we wanted to make it modern. We have our accessibility button because we already checked it. And we have some specific elements that are inside that car. And we are grouping as a designers that specific content because we need the users to understand that that is a car and that button is just related to those points on top. What happened? Below, you can see that the user is actually missing all the context because they are not going to be able to see that group that you are creating as a designer. And we needed to make it accessible. So for that, an easy way to solve it is to pick an accessible stroke. That stroke is going to be part of your element, in this case, of a car. By doing that, you can ensure that even though the user will not notice the background of the car, they will be able to group the content. And that way, you can make sure that your design is not losing the hierarchy that you are building. The same happens with this specific example. And I really like this example because for us, it's going to be very clean. But you can see on the left, yes, your left, that is the original design. And on your right, you can see that what some users with different visual impairments are actually seeing. Some of them will basically think, okay, maybe this is going to be clickable or not. Maybe the settings is also going to be clickable, and maybe there is a bug on the code because it's having less padding than the rest. But that's also exactly the same of the other items below. In order to make it work, we can apply the same solution. And I know what you are probably thinking. Okay, but in terms of a design, that's not actually very appealing. I don't want to proceed with the strokes. I don't want to try to have strokes everywhere in order to try to pass accessibility. Maybe users will understand. Maybe users will start touching the screens and guessing which is clickable or not. And okay, I can understand you, but it's not how we are trying to pass accessibility. We need to try to make it right and to make it work and to make it look nice. So let's review first, showing you a real use case, the design decorative elements. That's how I wanted to call it in order to help you to have sort of a guide. So in the first one, we have the icons. As you probably know, icons should always be with a label. Then we have backgrounds. Backgrounds are a decorative element. Depending where you are applying it, you need to make sure about accessibility. Then we have some elements like, for example, an avatar, a divider, that it can be decorative, is not affecting the structure. we are going to see some examples in order to understand that one. And finally, shadows. Or, for example, gradients. So please don't replace accessible stroke with a shadow. That doesn't work. It's not accessible. You are not going to comply, and the fault is going to be yours because you are taking the decisions around the design. So the gradient's the same. If you manage to have 2 gradients with 3 or 2 colors that are accessible, good. But if one part of the gradient is not, then you need to be careful with that. We definitely need to be aware of the different accessibility points. Now let's talk about the icons. So yes, short answer, icons should always be with labels, but for some neurodivergent people, they could be able to understand some specific icons. The ones that you're seeing on the screen, a person which is a neurodivergent will not be able to understand that that's actually a man and a woman in a dress, but they will understand that that's actually the icon of going to the bathroom. So they learn those shapes and they learn their meaning, but some of them will not be able to recognize, as well as the second icon and the third icon. They will understand that something is forbidden or that that place is going to have some danger. So they can understand. There are some specific icons, the ones that you are seeing on the top, that we can call them pictograph symbols. And this is what we like to call semantic icons. Some of them are going to be accessible and you can have it without a label, but you need to be careful because it's not just a matter of the shape of the icon. You can see an example below of how those specific icons are not being accessible, even though are exactly the same. The situation is that the icons on the buttons are really, really thin, and users will not understand and to represent them as the icons that they understand on top. It doesn't mean that you have to have huge icons, as an example that I'm putting on the top. But for example, the burger menu of the Google material is actually considered semantic, which means that you can use that specific icon on your burger menu because people will be able to recognize that specific icon. But you need to have a specific size, okay? So I'm trying to give you some tips, but as you may know, it's a little bit more complex than just trying to apply some semantic icons. Okay, so now I wanted to show you a real use case. In this case, it's not accessible, but we are going to discover that out. We designed this specific application for this presentation, and we are Star Wars fans, or at least I am. And in here, you can see a specific application where you are going to see the planet, you are going to have a burger menu, a search icon, which is full of different details. You are going to have the not accessible car that I explained you before, with an accessibility button, which is okay, and too many other elements there. Like, for example, the chips, the different lists in a list in order for you to get to know a little bit more or read more about the episodes, and of course, the episode details. Let's see how some users with different levels of impairment are seeing this specific application. It depends if the user only has some different levels of visual impairment, or if it's divergent, or is on a sunny light. It depends of the person. But if we get into the worst scenario, this is what that person is going to be looking at your specific application. They are not going to be able to recognize the burger button. They are going to completely miss the context out of the read button, because I don't know if this is the read button about the items that I have in there, or maybe in general of the application. They are not going to be able to see the 2 buttons below, the chips. They are not even able to read what we are filtering. They don't know if those elements are clickable or not. We are missing everything, and we are not even able to read, even though it's a dark mode application. How can we actually make it accessible without making it ugly, for example? So in this case, as I mentioned before, one very good use is the decorative elements plus accessibility strokes. In this case, the strokes are not interfering with your very nice looking design, but also you are allowing yourself to have different tones of decorative background. For example, we have the planet, we have the ship that is giving you the tip of the rotation, we have the planet name, then we are having a decorative background that is letting me know the terrains, the population, etc. We're giving a little bit more of context in our button. We are saying, read more of the twin. Below, we have the two buttons that now have accessibility, accessible background, and which is not a decorative element anymore. We also, for filmography, we are using a stroke in order to group the content. We are improving the chips. We are even applying an icon, a semantic one, saying this is the one that you have selected, and also helping from the different states of selected and not selected of the chips. And we are applying also an accessible lines that are dividing from the different 4 episodes that we have in there. By doing this is what a person with so many different levels of impairments is going to see. They are missing, of course, the background, the decorative backgrounds, they are not seeing them, but the original stroke is helping me to group the rest of the content. They are not losing the context as well of filmography. They know that all that content is just one specifically. You also are going to see that in this case, the icons that we have on top for the burger or for the shares are actually being improved. The users will be able to use it because we are not using anymore the same icon for the shares that have a lot of details. It's a semantic one. It's the one that we are using in this design, is the material one. This is just a rough example of how you can make it work without ruining your design or trying to reinvent the wheel. Accessibility good practice are there in order for you to take advantage of it. And what you need to try to do is to understand the best practices and to try to apply it into your design and to make it work. Of course, it depends of checking constantly the different contrasts and analyzing what you really need to try to achieve. In this case, you can allow yourself to have decorative elements. For people who can see, it's going to be just perfect. And for people who cannot, they are not going to miss that because they are still going to understand the hierarchy of your content. They will be able to use your application or your website. At the end, that's the objective. You want everyone to use it. As a final example, you can find a lot of different plugins out there that is going to allow you to understand how some specific users are going to see your applications. In this case, this plugin is from Figma, but you even can install some plugins directly on the Chrome if you want to check your web on production, or directly on your smartphone if you want to see exactly how your final application on productions is looking for some specific people. The situation in here that you can see, and I want to try to focus on that specific option, is that you cannot rely on colors because some people will not be able to see it. So forget about using green, red, yellow, orange in order to make it happen. If you need to do that, you can try to expose a status by using a semantic icon, and next to that icon, you need to indicate the label. If something is not done, you can say that it's incomplete with a semantic icon, and that can be read, but you are not just relying on color. So you need to try to take one extra step in order to make your solutions accessible. So now I'm going to give the floor to my colleague.
Okay, thank you, Yai. So we will continue with the development process. For the non-developers, don't worry, we are not talking code. So we will explain more or less the foundation and a bit of everything, so you know what your team is working on and you can help build the application. So we will continue with mobile accessibility, and we will build the foundation with the 3 principal elements. First of all, the start of the show, voiceover. VoiceOver was released in 2005 on macOS Tiger, and then later in 2009 on iPhone 3G. So it's not new, but it really have developed over the years. But how does VoiceOver work? So VoiceOver have a focus element that will move through the screen. I will select all the items in the screen and read them out loud. So users move this focus element in the following order. They can just select an item, so the VoiceOver reads it out loud, or they can swipe from left to right to move semantically in the screen, so from top to bottom and from left to right. So we have to make sure that everything is aligned properly. And another important fact is that we have to make sure that we are providing quality information. VoiceOver doesn't do anything if the information it reads is wrong, is misaligned, it's duplicated, and it doesn't give value to the user. For example, this is what the VoiceOver will read. We have 4 elements. We have the label, which is selected. We have the value, which is all in this example. We have the trait, in this case is a button. And then we have the hint to guide the user, selected to filter phonography. The second most important thing is the dynamic components. So we have the average text size, but this can be increased up to 200%. So if we are not taking care of this, users can try to increase the dynamic size of our font and lose all the information and don't be able to understand anything. And the third part of the foundation, as all product-based, is the good practices. So if we build our code with good practices, we are already including all this accessibility value that it can do automatically and without thinking of it. The first thing is color contrast. If you have a good design team, they have already taken care of this, so you don't have to worry. But just in case, there's also a tool in the development process that can help you ensure that the color contrast is correct. Then you have native components. So all these frameworks that are provided by Google and from Apple already do most of the work. They are already making these components in helping you build these products for accessible means. So it's very important, mainly if you are juniors that are not very familiar with accessibility, to incorporate native components as they do most of the work. And another good thing to have in mind is haptic feedback. So this has helped us, everyone, in a loud environment, when we are stressed. Our phone does a little vibration to let us know that something is happening, something has completed on your device. You don't need to hear, maybe you're hearing music, your ears are ringing because you went to a concert last night. So it's really important to have these kind of features to help you understand that something is happening. And many more, like intuitive design, button sizes, etc. So let's build our Star Wars application. We are in a new project. We are really excited to build this beautiful app. So we will start with the planet information, all the new buttons that the design team has designed for us, and also the film detail. But if you missed our teaser, this is our motto. So we have to make sure that our applications work. So let's make it work. We will review our application to check if everything is correct and to make sure that everything that can be improved is improved. So this is a demo of the application that we've just shown, built with good practices. It wouldn't be a real use case if we just did a garbage application. We don't do garbage application. We always try our best. But this person has not have the ability to or the knowledge to build the application with the accessibility in mind. So let's take a look at how the VoiceOver will read it.
_search, planet, image, rotation, 23, Saturn, climate, arid, terrain, desert, population, 2, 0, gravity, 1 stand, read more of starships, but species, button, filmography, selected, all, movie, series, button, IMG_6, Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker, forward, favorite, 8.3, IMG_5, The Empire it is a dark, forward, favorite, 8 points, IMG_ A New Hope, it is a period of forward, image, IMG_4 big, image, read more of Tatooine, Starship, favorite, image, 8.6. Episode 4, A New Hope. It is a period of civil war. Director, image. Director, George Lucas. Producer, Gary Kerr, Ike underscore release. 19, next on the IMG underscore 5, image. IMG under The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, favorite, image. 8.3, favorite, image. 8.7. 8.7.
Okay, this last sound makes us know that we have reached the bottom of the screen. So let's analyze this. The first thing we notice is that it's very difficult to navigate. There are a lot of elements. It takes us more than 30 swipes of our finger to reach the bottom of the screen. Very tiring in your day. How many times you scroll down your application? Now imagine you have to do 30 swipes every time you want to reach the bottom. So it's a lot of work that we can save on our users. So one thing that it's a common mistake is not grouping items. So we have a lot of information here, and it's making it difficult to navigate. But also, when we have items like this, then it loses their information. There are only two elements here, but we could have many more. And the voiceover will read image, 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 movie, movie, movie. So it's a bit confusing. So one thing we can do is just grouping our items. So we will read Tatooine, all the information. I don't need to know the information of Tatooine. I get to go ahead with the film, just jump over it. And the same with the rest of information, even when you are trying to navigate through vertical cells. Then another thing, linked to our components, or native components, is using tappable custom views. So this designer has made us some complex views that, well, how can this be a button? I will just make it a view and it will work perfectly. But then, if we are not using a button, then we will have to remember that we need to add the trait, the hint, and all the traits. So it's very easy to forget about it. If you are just wrapping everything under a button, the framework already will do the work for you. Then providing little to no information. Here are some common examples. For example, adding the element to the value to, for example, all button, or just forgetting to add the description and the title of the image. So it will just read the name of the file you have saved. So it could be some gibberish, really, that is very difficult to understand. We have added all the information that we should add here, so the selected, all buttons selected to filter the filmography, and the same with the image in the section of Tatooine. Then we have dynamic sizes. So this is not done by default in some cases, so you have to make sure your application and your font is scaled. It's just adding a quick text. You're already wrapping everything on a theme, so it will be very easy. But what happens when, I will just increase the size and forget about it. So here we have examples of if you are not taking dynamic sizes into account, you just taking Figma and taking all the values that are shown there, this is what will happen. So we have to make sure that we include these good practices, not limiting the line limit, and adding the minimum height of the button, so you make sure that in an average font, it can be read very clear. But if the size of the font is increased, then you have all the information and the user will know what is happening on the screen. So this is the developer checklist to make sure that we have everything into account. A good design is key. So designers already have accessibility in mind, and that helps us a lot, because if accessibility has not taken into account, maybe some components are impossible to adapt to their content because it was not meant for that. Then native components are the way to go, especially if you are a junior developer, so you don't have to remember everything, you're already trying to learn. Then good practices make the difference. If you are already doing good code, it is most probably that you are already doing a lot of things and you are not noticing. Keep up the technology. So yes, VoiceOver has been around for 19 years now, tomorrow 20 years, but every year Apple has a special section for accessibility, how it develops, how it improves the people's life and change their focus. Then little effort goes a long way. So everything you add to your application is already improving it. It's normal that we are short of time, that we are have a lot of things to do, but just doing a little already is improving the quality of your product. And don't be afraid to do it perfectly. Like, user will not judge you for not adding the correct description or forgetting some little detail. But if you are already working on it, well, you will improve over time, and you will get better at it, and users will notice. So that is the end of it. So this is the final product. You will see we have made all the changes that we explained during the process, and let's see how it turned out.
Search button. Tatooine heading. Planet Tatooine image. Rotation 23. Climate arid terrain desert popular. Read more of Tatooine button. Starships button. Species button. Filmography heading. Selected all button. Select to filter filmography. Movies series Return of the Jedi. Luke Skywalker has returned to his home planet of rating 8.3 button. Double tap to navigate to the movie details. The Empire A New Hope. It is a period of Episode 4, A New Hope, heading, rating, 8.6. Opening crawl. It is a period of civil war. Director, George Lucas. Producer, Gary Kurtz. Release, 1977. Next on the chronology, heading. The Empire Strikes Back, rating, 8.7. Return of the Jedi, rating, 8.3.
Okay, so that is it. It can also be improved. Like, there is no perfect product, but we have done our best, and we have implemented all the good practices we know. If you know any more, don't hesitate to contact us, and also create a community around it so we can all keep learning. And that would be it. So remember that accessibility rights are human rights. And do not forget to give your feedback on the QR over there or on the application for the event so we can keep improving. Thank you, everyone.